Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Vamily Show, the very awesome family show. With me today, I have Dr. Richard London, and we're going to have an interesting conversation about many things, about things that he sees coming in the future, and everybody around has kind of felt that things are kind of changing, and some big things are happening. So I kind of want to get right into that. You told me that you've been a spiritual advisor for President Biden and some other people as well. So
Yes.
how did you first come into that being where you were able to feel the different vibrations and stuff like that?
Actually, since about 4 years old. Do you remember the book The Secret?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So I was the fundador of The Secret.
Okay.
In other words, when I was 4 years old, 40 plus years before The Secret came out in 2006, I was poor. I didn't like being poor. I
Right. I don't
liked
think
eating.
anybody likes being poor. I think that's a thing that nobody would necessarily choose.
I liked eating well.
Hmm.
So I walked on the boardwalk and I asked for pennies. My pockets were filled with pennies. Second day, nickels. Third day, dimes. Fourth day, quarters. By the end of the week, I'm only 4 years old. My pockets are weighted down with change.
Wow.
So I said, I want envelopes filled with paper money. That's the law of attraction.
Okay.
So by 8 years old, I was making an equivalent of 360,000 US dollars at the age of 8, and I had
Wow.
13 children working for me.
Wow, that's amazing. And so how did you end up starting that to where you were making that much money? Like what was it that you had where you had the money coming in for?
Well, first of all, I had the largest newsstand in California.
Wow.
And so I said, okay, I'm only one person. I can only sell so many newspapers per day based on my location. And so I hired 13 children at sports events, large churches, wherever there was thousands of people. And at that time, people would buy newspapers. That was everybody wanted to know what was going on in the world.
Mhm.
And then I started selling, I lived at the beach, suntan lotion, sunglasses, you name it. Yeah. So I thought out of the box
Right.
always.
Right.
Yeah.
Once
And
well, once you had that success when you're younger, I would keep thinking out of the box as well.
yeah. And so really there's the expression thinking out of the box, but in my world the box doesn't even exist. You
Mhm.
see the difference?
Yep. Yep.
People are taught to think out of the box, but if there's a box that exists, then that blocks you even more.
Right, because
So
then you're going to be looking at that box and thinking, how do I think out of that box?
right, exactly. So the box doesn't really exist. So I just always created whatever didn't exist here on the earth. And
Mhm.
I remember I used my money for good things.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't squander my money on frivolously. I helped my sisters. I helped my parents. I gave money to people on the street that were poor. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm still doing the same thing. People don't really change.
Right.
They
They
say
get they
that
get stuck in their same go to work, come home, and same mode all the time, almost like they're robots in a way.
exactly. So you brought up an important thing. Life is about details. So the more details you have in your life, the more memorable times you have. I can
Okay.
remember what I ate and what I wore when I was 4 years old. That's pretty
Right.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I have memories from real early, but I had some events happen then that I think clicked my memory on at an early age.
Yeah. So, listeners out there, remember the details in life. Yeah.
Right.
See, my I use energy in order to shift the world to a positive state. Yeah. I knew Donald Trump was going to be president before he knew he was going to be president. And then I fight with the angelic beings and say, why is he going to be president? And they says he's part of a process to bring the world to its lowest point.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, do you know people who have been alcoholics and drug addicts in the past, Bob?
Yeah, and I've been one myself, and I'm trying to get past that, and it's a fight inside the mind with trying to
Okay.
get away from that kind of thinking.
Okay. So let me explain to you. So I was sitting in my living room and I said, it's been 80 years and no one ever took the 12-step program and brought it into the 21st century. So whenever I ask God about something, I always get the solution. So I ended up developing an 18-step program. And let me explain to you. In the 12-step program, it never dealt with your emotional triggers. So people can stop drinking, they can stop eating, they can stop alcohol, but unless you get rid of the emotional triggers,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to be absolutely normal.
Right, and that's where I'm struggling with right now is those emotional triggers of wanting
Yeah.
to.
Yes. And so I developed an 18-step program that removes the emotional triggers.
Okay.
That was the big secret. See, we live in a world where we're not taught, it's called the real divine truth.
Mm-hmm.
You, me, everybody needs the real divine truth, not somebody's opinion. So
Right.
I have no opinions, no judgments, no assumptions. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck.
Right.
Because, see, if you have opinions, judgments, and assumptions, they're blocks. They block you. Yeah. You're
Right.
allowed, Bob, you're allowed preferences. Yeah. Yeah. So, as an example, if I like chocolate ice cream and you like vanilla ice cream, that's wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. You can have as many preferences as you want, but too many opinions, too much judgment, too much assumptions,
It
it's going to
starts to cloud
ruin.
your heart.
Yeah, it's cloud your heart. It's going to ruin your life. Yeah.
And so that's why when we were talking earlier, you don't think about that many different things because as soon as you start thinking about those things, it clouds your heart and can cloud your judgment of whatever thoughts
Well,
come into your mind.
it doesn't really ever cloud my heart, my soul, because it's pure and it's always clean.
Mhm.
But most people, okay, I'll ask you a big question. How
Okay.
much time do you spend thinking every day? What percentage?
Oh, a good majority of it, probably 80-85%.
So
I
80,
spend thinking.
85%. So if you're thinking all the time, which is called mind chatter, then guess what? There's not space in that brain in order to receive divinity.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes
See,
sense.
you want to be able to receive information, divinity.
Mhm.
You know, the majority of people, they go to churches and they pray and they never receive anything. Do you know why?
Because they're thinking too much, probably.
Well, they're thinking too much, but God doesn't hear them.
Okay.
You know why God doesn't hear them? Because their vibration doesn't match. So let's do an experiment. Okay. So you grew up believing that God was way up here, right?
Right. Right.
And you were way down there, right?
Right.
How can you ever understand God if God's way up there and you're all the way at the bottom? Oh, so you have to bring yourself up where you and God are like this. Then God can hear you. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And Jesus is there to help work as an intermediary to help bring you up then to that level.
Yes. If you do the work. So I am going to give you an expression that I've lived all my life is that I work for God, therefore God works for me. Do you understand that? The
Yep.
majority of people in the world work for themselves. So when you work for yourself, how are you working for God? Just because you donate X amount of dollars to somebody doesn't mean you're working for God.
Okay.
Yeah. You have to actually make a commitment. I'm
Okay.
working for God, therefore God works for me. That's the only way God can really work for anybody is if you're working for God.
So it's a reciprocal relationship then. As
It's
long
a
as you're giving praising him and showing that it's his work that's helping you get to where you're at, then
right.
he'll keep bringing stuff toward you.
Well,
And
yeah, that's
that's like the
correct.
law of attraction, and I think we were going to talk about intentionality too. Is that kind of going
Right.
time with those?
Yeah. Everything in the world is about intention. Do you know that most of the so-called bad words in the world, you know they create wealth. They have the vibration of wealth. So we're taught as children this word is a bad word. What happened was I wondered why rappers were so wealthy and abundant. So I did a study, and the majority of words that they use are not bad words. So they create wealth because they don't really have a bad intention
Okay.
connected with it. See?
So it's the
Eh,
intention behind the words more than the words themselves. And because the
yes,
words aren't used that much, they're at a different vibration than the words that are used all the time.
right.
Okay.
So I have lots of animals, and I talk to my animals using so called bad words, and they're wagging their tail and they're kissing me and so forth because my intention is pure. It's just pure love.
Right.
And the people around me are just giggling. Yeah. So it makes the intention even better. So in the world we live in, intention has 9 faces. Imagine. So let me give you a better example. Your house has one foundation, right?
Right.
Imagine if your house had 9 foundations.
Then it'd be hard
Well,
to have the house sit on top of it because you wouldn't know which one is the bottom foundation that you're
yeah,
building on.
yeah, but at the same time, the strength is there.
Mm-hmm.
Nine,
Yeah.
find, 9 foundations could withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it.
Right.
So one of my favorite 9 faces of intention is divine action. So divine action is action based on divine processes. It's not the ego.
Okay.
Like I own hundreds of educational sites to educate people. The goal is to educate. And I'm going to teach you something you may not have ever heard. You, me, every person on this earth, we all should be spiritual farmers.
Okay. Now what does that
Spirit,
mean by spiritual farmers?
I'll explain to you. So I was 13 years old in junior high. Every plant I touched just grew like crazy because of my energy. Yeah. So I was selected to be future farmer of America.
Okay, I know
And
about
I'm
that
yeah, and
that
I'm
group.
sitting at this big event and I go, I don't want to be a farmer. That would be boring.
Right.
So I ended up being the greatest farmer on earth because every seed, right now I'm planting seeds with you and all the listeners in the world. But the difference between the seeds I plant and other people plant, my seeds always germinate.
Right, just something that you take away from this conversation, and it's something that you think about. And if you think about it, when we were talking about thinking, if that vibration gets in there, then you're going to have a
You're going to
that
have a positive response,
right,
yes.
right,
Yep. So I program my words to plant seeds that always germinate. Like
okay,
divine action, divine understanding are 2 intentions. Divine understanding, divine action. Those could be in the form of seeds. Yes.
Right.
So, you want to do things where you help people sort of unconsciously.
Right.
When I go into a grocery store, I'm planting seeds. When I'm walking on the street, when I'm walking on the street, I look at everybody. I know what's above me, below me, to the left, to the right, front, and back.
Just have
That's
an awareness of everything that's going on.
Yeah, you should
Try to
have
be
an
present in the moment.
present always. So, two other intentions are kindness and divine creativity. See, creativity could come from the ego.
Hmm.
I'm going to create a way to rob somebody. That's obviously not divine.
Right. But that's from your ego being trying to create
Right.
a scenario.
So, real kindness comes from your heart and soul. It doesn't come from your pocketbook.
Okay.
Yeah. Abundance and peacefulness are intentions. We live in an abundant world. Do you know in the ethereal plane where God is? God knows nothing about time. God knows nothing about denomination.
Because he
It's
doesn't
just
need
as
to.
No, and he doesn't need to. It's just as easy for Bob to ask for 1 penny as it to ask for $1 billion.
Yep.
Yes. So 1 penny takes a different level of divine action than $1 billion. There are millions of people sitting in their house right now and saying, "Oh, one of these days somebody's going to knock at the door and give me $1 million." Yes.
Right.
It's all right to dream, but unless you're taking action, it's probably not going to happen.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's why God's not a genie. It's not wishes. You have to ask for it and
Right.
then you have to work for it at the same time.
Right. Expansion of your heart is a great intention. So your heart, the energy from your heart and soul should always be expanding. Beauty. We live in a beautiful, beautiful world. Yes.
Yep. Amazing
Divine,
world.
an amazing world. My The last of the nine, and I'll read them back in a moment. Divine love. And let me explain to you about love. So this is big, giant germinated seeds. You, me, we grew up learning cultural love. That was the
Mhm.
love expressed by your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, your religious leaders. In most cases, it really doesn't have much value in the 21st century. Then the world created unconditional love, but then people put conditions on unconditional love. I'll love you if you do this. I'll love you if you buy me this. I'll love you if you do this.
Right.
Yes. The only love that God knows is divine love
Mhm.
because it's pure.
Right.
The relationship between animals and humans is divine love. The relationship between Mother Earth and humans is divine love. See, the greatest threat that humans always have in the world, it's always Mother Nature.
Right.
Mother
Because
Nature,
we can't control Mother Nature either.
right. God doesn't control Mother Nature. God doesn't create hurricanes and earthquakes and so forth. Mother Nature has her own heart and her own way of existing on this earth. And so Mother Nature is our greatest threat in the 21st century. I saw yesterday California had a lot of small earthquakes. You're going to see lots of natural disasters in the world because it's a cleansing. There's a
Hmm.
cleansing of humans, cleansing of our financial system, and there's a cleansing of Mother Earth.
And it's
Yes,
all coming to a head at the same time because we've tried to prevent all of it from happening ourselves instead of trusting in the system to take care of itself.
right. So humans right now are reaching the lowest they've ever lived in this existence. And the purpose, when you go rock bottom, like in the 12-step program, there's only one place you can go, that's up.
Right.
So when I say up, that means you move forward in your life in a positive way or you die. Yes.
Right.
And that's the way it's been with the existence of humans on this earth. You reach
But
your
everybody
lowest.
tries to prevent to get to that rock bottom because it's a hard spot to get up from, and I've
Yeah.
gotten up from it, and some other people have gotten up from it, and so I don't want to return there. I know that, but I know that you got to keep walking on steps to get back up out of it.
Oh, yeah. And the easiest thing to do, to be honest with you, is when you wake up in the morning. Do you remember the movie Mask, The Mask with Jim Carrey?
Yep. Yep.
So when I wake up and I look in the mirror, I go, smoking. Yeah. So you need
Right.
to honor yourself and honor God. You have to be happy with what you see in the mirror. And if you don't like what you see in the mirror, do something about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have one wrinkle, not one wrinkle in my body. My body is like a brick. Yeah. And that's because I understand my body. I understand my soul. I understand my heart. I understand the purpose of your brain. People put too much emphasis on their brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Believe it or not, your heart is your remote control. Most illnesses come from various chambers of your heart. Did you know that?
Yeah, there and that's where, like, when your brain releases those chemicals, it goes to your heart first, and your heart pumps all that blood around your body all the time
Right.
during the day, so it's going to get the most affected out of any of
Yeah.
those chemicals being released.
Yeah, our brain just helps us be aware. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to read the 9 faces of intention: divine understanding, divine action, divine creativity, kindness, peacefulness, abundance, expansion of your heart, beauty, and divine love. And remember, you should make affirmations in your life. I made an affirmation in my life that my life is easy, so therefore it's easy. Most people make their life difficult.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The more difficult your life, the more time consuming it is. So I have time and energies for everything in my life. Everything. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't have sufficient time to work in my garden, to play with my animals. And I have lots of animals. I have over 350 animals.
Wow. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So the domesticated animals, I have 8 dogs and 4 cats. And then I have wild animals in reserves around the world. I've been rescuing abused large animals for many, many years.
And
So
there's something about an abused animal that you can tell when it's been harmed, and if you can bring it back out of its shell, it's something that's very rewarding to do.
I can tell you, I've never been bitten by any animal, my tigers or my lions or any animal. Accidentally scratched, yes, because they're just big. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Yep.
They weigh hundreds and some thousands of pounds.
Wow.
And so they animals, big animals don't really understand that you're small because they're just picking up energy. The one thing you learn when you're around wild animals, don't ever run. If
Right,
you
because then you
run,
turn into prey.
then they think you're food, right? Then they think
Yep.
you're food. Yeah. So the reason I do these shows around the world, I've been on thousands of radio and television programs, is to plant seeds. I have a lot of new events that I do. One of the events that I do on a regular basis is Unbreakable Spirit. So if you want to be able to move forward in the future, logically and practically, if you have an unbreakable spirit, if you're a warrior and you're living in truth, imagine those three ingredients. You have an unbreakable spirit, you're a warrior, and you live in the truth. What's going to happen? You're going to move forward.
Right.
Yes. The other emphasis that I have, I'm going to use a word, and it's not a bad word. So I have a new website. It's called Bullshit Free Life.
Okay. I'll put that one in here. And it's
Yeah,
is that dot com?
yeah,
Okay.
bullshitfreelife.com. And the other one is therealdivinetruth.com as well. So the majority of people live in a world where their life is really filled with trash. Yeah.
Yep.
And trash, you should
Trash
put
thoughts,
it,
dude. Not just things, trash thoughts in your mind.
yeah, everything is trash. Their life is really trash. Because unless your life is moving forward constantly in a positive manner, something is wrong. What it is, your thoughts, the way you live your life. See, in life, everything has to match.
Right.
You can't be a hypocrite. Do you know I've never not done what I said I was going to do in my life? How do you like that?
Always kept your word.
Always kept my word 100%. Integrity is a really important aspect of life today. Because if somebody gives you a penny that doesn't belong to you, you have to return that penny.
Mm-hmm.
If it takes you 5 miles to walk, you return the penny. Because a penny is in comparison with someone robbing somebody at 50,000 or a million, 100 million, a billion, or a trillion. Yes. It's
Right.
the act. Integrity has
Not
to be
the amount,
100%.
not the amount, the act of it.
Yeah. Integrity has to be 100%. Yeah. So I've never not done what I say I'm going to do. I always make a point, even if it takes me extra time. So I had to do some errands today, and one of these little dogs ripped the front where I keep one of my pets. And so as soon as I got back, I wasn't able to go in the house. I immediately started working on it. It took me an hour and a half to complete.
Right. Right. And
And
then
I did it because it enables one of my animals to be more safe.
yeah, and Char Heart that's in here says there's a quote that talks about your heart having the word Yahweh in it.
Well, actually, okay, in the first layer of everybody's DNA, you may not know it, it's called the God's Code.
No, I
And
didn't know that.
in the first layer of everybody's DNA, you know what it says? In
Uh-uh.
Aramaic, it says God within our body.
Wow.
So everybody's looking for God, and
And it's right there in your DNA.
it's been there in your DNA.
Wow.
Always. Yeah. God has always been in people's DNA. Unless you acknowledge it and recognize it, it can't grow and it can't manifest. That's the
Right.
thing.
And just like the Big Bang, I look at that as when in Genesis when it says God said let there be light. I mean that's the perfect explanation for the Big Bang because they always say they can't figure out what was before the Big Bang. Well, God's the perfect answer for what was before the Big Bang.
Right. See, everybody needs to believe in something bigger than themselves.
Hmm.
If you don't believe in anything bigger than yourself, it's hard to have a lot of great meaning in your life.
Right.
Yes.
Really
And
hard to have it.
and I know that God is real because in the world today, I create more miracles than any human in the entire world. How do you like that? Every day I create miracles. And let me give you an example of a very practical, logical miracle. My wife doesn't speak English, only Spanish. We're in front of a department store. We're going to go in the department store. She's going to look at shoes. I said, I want to buy something 80% discount. Are they paying me to buy an item? That's a crazy statement,
That
right?
is. Yeah, yeah. When you
To
say it
go in
like
a
that, is
store, to go in a store and they pay you to buy it. So my wife goes to look at shoes. I go downstairs and I see this high-end shaver, Panasonic. Had a price on it, $300. Has a barcode. The man puts it in the computer. He charges me $30.
wow.
Yes. So they paid me $270 to buy a $300 item. Yes. This
That's amazing.
happens every day of my life. So what you do when you're rewarded with these great things, you give thanks, gratitude, and joy. Those are the two key words, listeners: gratitude and joy. Yeah. You stay in gratitude and you stay in joy.
Right. And I've talked to other people about that, how gratitude changes the pathways in your brain so that and then you're more thankful about everything.
Yeah, gratitude and joy have a vibration that God understands. God
That's why
doesn't
it's talked
understand.
so much about in the Bible. Then is the
Right,
thankfulness in there all the time.
right. God doesn't understand. I'm pissed. You know, that doesn't even sound good.
No, who would want to listen to that? If you were God, would you want to listen to that, or would you want to listen to thank yous? That's what, if you really look at it that way, if you were God, what would you want to listen to?
That, Bob, you just made a good point. People have to understand God at a real level. So you can ask God, God, what would I do? Yes. But you ask the questions from your heart and your soul, not your mind.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
God, give me, what are the numbers that I should play for the lottery? You don't ask God those kind of questions.
right. If
Yes.
you're able to talk to God, why would you waste your time with lottery numbers?
Yes. You know, people, the greed sets in. Yeah. You could create anything you want in life if you're really connected. See,
Hmm.
I teach people how to be really connected. People need to be really connected. So I stay in a place you might not have ever heard about it. It's called knowing. So what would you rather, where would you rather be? In a place, oh, I'm looking for the answers, I'm looking for the answers, I'm looking for the answers, or stay in a place of knowing?
The
I'm going
place
to
of
ask you a
knowing.
question. So does God know everything?
Yeah, God's gonna know everything, but He's not gonna necessarily tell you everything.
Right. But if you move up the scale, then God's going to tell you what you need in order to move forward in your life in a positive manner.
Correct.
When my daughter was born, I wanted to be a 10 out of 10 father. My personal friends were the most famous parenting experts in the world. Most of them were women. And I outdid every one of them. Do you know why?
Because
It's
you're in that place
because,
of knowing.
yes, but also God told me, make yourself number one, but not from a place of ego, but from a place in your heart. Happy fathers make happy children. Happy mothers make happy children. So I was always happy, having fun. I never had to sacrifice because whatever did for me, I would always do for everybody that I love. See, that's the difference. Narcissists, the world always revolves around them. Whereas when you come from a place in your heart and not ego, you never forget the people that you love.
And it's hard to unlearn that ego part though. That's because it's so ingrained in us, especially from society, because they want you to have that ego so that you buy more stuff.
Yeah. See, most moms and dads become martyr moms or martyr dads. And it's not good, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you're ultimately going to be resentful. And that resentment is going to damage your relationship with your children, with your siblings. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a bit complicated, but not that complicated. So I teach people how to stay in knowing. If you're living a bullshit-free life, you're in knowing. Yeah.
Right.
If you're living in the real divine truth, knowing. If you have an unbreakable spirit. So people who've been challenged with illnesses are people who have, you know, various discapacities and so forth. They grow into this world of an unbreakable spirit. They do things. They have no legs and they swim like a dolphin.
Right.
So, but an unbreakable spirit comes from God. You can't just go to the store and buy an unbreakable spirit. And you have to have the wisdom. And see, that's the big difference. I live in a world of wisdom versus knowledge. Most of the internet is knowledge.
Right.
Wisdom is right here with God. So what would you rather have? Knowledge that's down here, a wisdom of God.
You'd rather have the wisdoms, because without the wisdom, all the knowledge isn't going to do you any good.
Right. It's not going to do you any good. And see, wisdom always stays true. Knowledge can falter.
Now that makes more sense too. Like knowing you can look up how to fix things or how to do things, but if you know how to do them, then any instructions that you get on how to fix other things, like I worked on cars before, so I have a general wisdom about cars and how they operate. And so when I get instructions on things, it makes it a little bit easier for me to fix the problem. And so I think that's what you're getting at with what the difference between wisdom and knowledge.
Yes. I love cars. I know every model of car ever built in the history of the automotive industry. All my entire life. When I was a little kid, we used to drive a lot of places. So I played a game, and that was remembering all the models of the car on the road. Yeah. I watch all the car programs on television, every one of them. As well, I'm a treasure hunter, but a very unique treasure hunter. For 40 plus years, I would go to estate sales and garage sales Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was the first person. I didn't get the treasures for me. I put the treasures in my trunk.
Wow.
I'm known as the treasure doctor. Yes. And so when a person did an act of kindness in a car wash, in a restaurant, any place, I go to my car. I would have 200, 300, 400 treasures in there. I'd put a treasure out that divinity told me the person needs in their life. And it had nothing to do how much the value was. It's they needed that in their life at that particular time, and I gave that to them.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I
And
did that for, go ahead.
I'm sure you changed some of their lives with that as well.
Yes, they were surprised and they were grateful and very joyful. Lots of people cried. Yes, it made me feel good. And so divinity told me to do it. Yeah. And I would find really great treasures. I found original artwork, famous artists, $1. How do you like that?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's amazing to find those, and then you get to give that away to somebody and change their life,
yeah,
and all it cost you was $1.
yeah. And it's really interesting. So I'm going to tell the listeners out there. So I was at a garage sale, and there was a box that said Mont Blanc. And the man saw my eyes looking at the box. I didn't see the pen, only the box. There was no pen show. And he says to me, you know that Mont Blanc is one of the greatest writing instruments in the world. And I just agreed and said, yes. The second words from my mouth was, how much do you want? He said, $1. I took the dollar out of my pocket, gave him $1, went to the car. It was 14 karat gold, ebony, Mont Blanc pen, valued at more than $1,000.
Wow.
So I've
Wow.
told this story at various events, and people say, well, you put a hex on the person. No. Divinity acted in my behalf because the person knowingly knew that it was a valuable pen.
Mm-hmm.
And he said $1. So he felt the divinity energy. I felt the divinity energy. And I still have that pen. Yes. In gratitude.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes me, when I was going for a walk the other day, I didn't have anybody talk to me. I had one person talk to me and they said Happy Easter and called me brother out of nowhere. And so that makes me feel like there's that kind of energy is if you can start to tap into it, it can change your life.
Yes. The thing is, joy and gratitude and divine love emanates, just like it emanates from God, and people respond, even cranky people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. People say hi to me all the time. Here's an interesting thing. Little babies and little children always are smiling at me.
And
Because
children can feel energy better than adults
right,
can. Isn't that correct?
yeah. They feel the the divinity. If you truly have divinity inside of you, somebody beside yourself should be able to pick it up. And adults pick it up as well, but when children pick it up, it's very special.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
because children are taught don't talk to strangers. So all over the world, when I travel, I go hi. I talk in the language. Hola, cómo está? Yeah,
Right.
and the kids always come back and talk. Yeah, if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all.
That's
That's
one of the first things that your parents teach you.
actually God taught me. I didn't listen to my parents. I listened to God since a little child. So you never can go wrong. Do you know I never said no to my parents ever in my lifetime? Never. I would go, yes, mom, yes, dad, walked out of the house. I was a wild child. Yeah. So I grew up being free. It's a wonderful place.
I remember going out until the sun came out and coming back then. But none of my other brothers and sisters really did that. But I always would want to go out of the house and just go exploring all day
Yeah.
until the sun came down.
It's okay to be a wild child if you're doing good things,
Right.
helping people, talking to people. Yeah. So we're in a world where there are divine solutions. There is a place of knowing. I help people move to that place, and it's an important place. So no matter if you're poor, medium, or rich, we all want to be in a state of knowing. And I'm going to give you a real example. My wife, she watches all these religious programs and spiritual programs from all over Latin America because she doesn't understand English. And she was getting confused by the information. So I says, make a list of all these questions about God and the universe and everything you want to know. So it took me an entire day to answer all the questions. And you know what her response was? Oh, you know the solutions. They're looking for the solutions. So
Mm-hmm.
there are people like myself who know the solutions. And the solutions are not just for me. Remember, when you have divine wisdom, you must share it with other people.
Right.
You can't take ownership of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you take ownership of it, then that's doing against what God wants you to do with it. If He
Yeah.
gave you the gift of the knowledge of it, then you should share it with whoever you can
Yeah. Do you know why the internet was created?
to share information.
No. Nope. To bridge all humanity knowing no ethnicity. It was created to diminish, yes, racism in the world, discrimination. And it's done a pretty good job in that.
To shed light on all that stuff.
Yeah. Knowing no ethnicity. Because people talk to people from all over the world now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people are so accustomed now, they don't say, oh, this person is Chinese, this person Japanese, this
No, that's
person's
my
that.
friend from wherever, but it doesn't
Yes,
really matter.
it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So that's why the internet's created. And you know who owns the internet? We all do.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not owned by a company, it's not owned by a person. It's owned by all living things on earth.
Yep.
Yes. Mother Nature owns the internet. All the animals in the world own the internet. Yes. All the humans own the internet. It's a
So
great place.
it's almost like we're going back to a Garden of Eden then too, where everybody knows everything about everybody as well.
Yeah. So what's going on really now is humans need to create heaven on earth. Yes. So we all have an opportunity in the 21st century here on earth to create heaven on earth. And the more people that create heaven on earth, then your earth is going to have a nice balance. Mother
Okay.
Nature cannot exist in the future unless people are living on heaven on earth. You don't cut down trees, you don't destroy Mother Nature. Yes. Believe
Because
it or not, go
otherwise,
ahead.
Mother Nature will make sure that we don't have a chance to do that anymore.
Yes, Mother Nature can. And Mother Nature doesn't want to.
Right.
Mother doesn't want to destroy this earth. The earth is too beautiful. Yes. You're in the state of Washington, a lovely place.
Yep.
The whole world is lovely. It's
Yep.
not,
Each place has got its own beauty. Deserts have their beauty, and so do the ice caps have their beauty. Every place has different beauty to it.
oh yeah. I like desert, especially at nights. The stars.
Yeah, when you can
Yeah.
see all those stars, it's beautiful. It's beautiful when you
Yeah.
can see that.
When you live in big cities, then you have city blindness and you don't get to see that many stars. But when you're out in the desert, oh my God, it looks like zillions. Yeah.
But at the same time, you see all those stars, but you feel more connected to the universe at the same time because
Right.
you realize you have a place in the universe, and it's not just the light pollution that's blocking out all the stars.
Right. Exactly. You do. You feel more connected. Well, I feel connected to everything all the time. So I'm
Right.
connected to this computer. I'm connected to you. I'm connected to my wife, my animals. I'm always connected. That's the
Right.
other thing, too. When you're in knowing and you're creating heaven on earth, you're always connected to everything. The
Yep.
paper, I'm connected. And once you realize that, you live in a much more harmonious place. Because if you
Yep.
feel that you're disconnected to if you're disconnected to one thing, you're disconnected to everything. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep. And Tara Hart mentions another one, which we didn't even really get into yet, which is sound and the noise pollution that's close to the cities as well. You
Oh
never
yeah,
get a real chance. It keeps you amped up in that thinking state all the time. You never really get a chance to relax.
yeah. Well, I'm always relaxed, even when I have things to do. I took a brief nap with my wife today, and I'm holding her hand, and in Spanish, I'm asking her, my energy is nice. So my energy is like heavenly. I had a large center, religious center, spiritual center, and I had tens of thousands of people. On a Saturday or Sunday, I had to hug 10,000, 20,000 people or more.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a lot of hugging.
That is.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
And people loved it. Yeah. That's another thing. When you hug someone, don't pat them on the back.
Right. Reach around and
Silent. Yeah. Heart to heart, and just share your love with them and receive love back from them.
right.
I have a dog. She puts her paws over my shoulders. She puts her nose right by my nose and then very softly kisses, just like a human.
Yep.
Yeah. So animals are like humans. They have their beauties. You have to
Hmm.
recognize those beauties. I'm
Right.
gonna have to I'm gonna have to go soon.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say we can wrap up. I'd love to have you on again, anytime. And I always tell people stop waiting for life to happen and make life happen. And kind of what we talked about tonight is one of the is you gotta make life happen. You can't just wish for it. So I
Oh
appreciate
yeah.
you being on, and it's bullshitfreelife.com if you want to learn more from Dr. Richard London here. And is there anything else that you want to leave the people with?
Well, I want to leave everyone with the thought that really everything is possible. And what makes it not possible is this: your life, my life, is whatever goes in and out of our mouth. So when you open your mouth, great words, great, powerful, divine words should come out, and put good things in your mouth. And you don't always have to eat healthy.
Right. But you want to because that's taking care of the body that you were given to be able to live that life.
Yeah. God gave you a body, don't abuse it.
Right.
God gave you a heart, don't abuse it. God gave you a soul, don't abuse it. Yes.
Yep.
Treasure it.
Yep.
Yes.
And that's
So,
that's why you're the treasure doctor right there. Is you give people pieces of gold advice like that.
right. Big hug to you, Bob.
Yep. Big hug
And
back, right back at you. Right
yeah,
back
and
at
a
you.
hug to everybody in the universe. Many
Yep.
blessings. We'll talk again soon. It's been fun with you, Bob. You
Oh yeah.
you you have great wisdom and great sincerity too. I
Well,
enjoy.
thank you. I appreciate that, and I love to talk to you again. And everybody out there that's listening, I'm going to let you go, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye.